and welcome back to the Shakedown. My name is Ryan, aka Rainforest, and I am here with the lovely Malone. Say hello to the people, Malone.
Hello.
And this week, Malone wanted to hear my thoughts because we just got done with a big election. We're recording this back in November, so we just got done with hearing all about the lovely lock 'em up rhetoric, and Malone wanted to hear my thoughts about that, and then he's going to jump in and interrupt me because he's very good at that. So let's get to talking. So that's like become like a huge. I mean, it's always a big talking point. Lock 'em up. Let's right now the biggest thing is because of the defund the police. There's been a counter defund the police movement of like this politician supports defund the police, so we need to go in the opposite direction and we need to lock people up. And that's, and every time there's any sort of crime, they highlight it and they say, this is why we need police officers and this is why we need to lock people up. And what I've been trying to say since the beginning of this podcast and since I've been locked up and since my accident is basically this doesn't help. None of that helps. More police officers on the streets, more people going to prison. None of that helps. And here is how I'm going to back that up. The more people you put into prisons, the more people who come out of the prisons, the more likely they are to offend. You've created a place where when you go to this place, the more likely you are to commit a crime when you leave it. So that's the first thing. So if I told you that there's just a building, like if you go into this building in your town, and when you go into it, you're more likely to commit a crime after you leave it, then that should be a giant red flag that there's a problem with that building and whatever's going on inside of it. So that's the first thing. So prison's not helping people who are going into it from the start. The second thing are the police helping with crime? That's the other big part of it, the lock 'em up rhetoric. And the answer to that is no, because once again, they're sending them to this place where they learn how to be better criminals or just to commit more crimes. I don't really think better criminals is the right word because they end up getting caught again, so they're not really getting better at it. But the thing is, the police, what police officers' job?
Oh.
What's that?
I didn't. I thought whenever you stopped and said what, I thought you thought I was jumping in. Sorry.
Oh no, no
Keep
problem.
going. Fantastic, Rainforest.
Thank you. So police officers, their job.
No, thank you.
Police officers' job, as much as it says serve and protect, spray painted across their car or whatever catchphrase it says on the side of their on the side of their cars, their job is to look for problems, to look for people breaking the law, and to take them in. That's it. That's their job. Is not about it. If you call that serving and protecting, then that they're doing great. But their job is to look for problems. When they're out on the side of the road and they've got a radar gun, they are looking for someone speeding. They are looking for someone who's who with a lapsed registration or a broken headlight or a broken taillight, or who is driving funny. They are looking for a problem. They are not looking to help or to improve or to serve. They are looking for a problem. I'm not saying this is a problem with a specific police officer. That is their job. My job, and like my job right now is marketing. My job is to go out and to promote. I go out and talk about Longmont public media and talk about how awesome it is and get more members in and to get more money coming in. That is my job, all right? Police officer, their job is to go out and to find the people who are causing problems. And a lot of times we get into to issues about there's quotas and all this kind of stuff. They're supposed to, we get, there's an uproar when we find out, oh my gosh, the captains have quotas on how many people they're bringing in. That means, which is a problem because that means they have to arrest a certain number of people, even if there's no problems going on around them. And that's because that's what their job is. They're constantly looking for something. And the trouble arises like when you have someone, especially when they have a weapon with them, and you put them in a situation where you tell them over and over again, this may be dangerous. This may be life-threatening. This is why we gave you a gun. And you put them in that situation, yeah, sometimes someone is going to get shot, and that person might not have been at the risk. But if you keep putting that in their head, yeah, something's going to go down. And here are the problems. And despite all of that happening, despite there being prisons, despite all of these issues, crime has somehow not vanished off the face of the earth. And crime and deviant behavior and all of these things don't just magically vanish. And one thing I've said multiple times on this podcast is because when someone is in the middle of breaking a law, they, as like in my case, I was not thinking about what the laws were on drunk driving or what the laws were for intoxicated manslaughter or what the laws are for fleeing the scene. It's not what you're thinking about at the time. Those don't occur to you at that time. You have other things that are bigger on your plate than what punishments are there for breaking this law. And you just aren't thinking about it because you're living your life at that moment and you're dealing with it one step at a time. And so you don't know. And we're all going to mess up. We're all going to make mistakes. And eventually, we're all going to find ourselves on the wrong side of that law. And I say that because the biggest factor determining who is and who is not a criminal has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with wealth, has nothing to do with what school you went to, none of those factors, has nothing to do with male or female, gender identity, ethnicity, religion, or how spiritual or religious, or what types of books you read or study, or your favorite movies. None of those are big determining factors on who is going to commit a crime. The biggest thing that determines if you will or will not commit a crime is your age. That is the biggest determining factor. The younger you are, the more likely you are to commit a crime versus the older you are, and this is the technical quote, you age out of crime. People age out of crime all the time. That's why people tend to that's what kind of encourage the longer sentences, is because they want to lock people up until they age out of crime and stop doing them, because people who are older just don't get around as much, aren't into the behaviors that cause as much as much trouble as it is really. But younger people, doesn't matter income, anything. It's just those are the people who are more likely to commit crime. And that's for everyone. And so if everyone is out there making these mistakes, then it doesn't matter about police. It doesn't matter about prisons. What we have to be looking out for is how can we help everyone? How can we look out for everyone? And instead of trying to find ways to blame everyone, how can we help everyone? And it is not by having a task force out there looking for problems. Now, I will admit, there will be times when it will be nice to have, we might need a team that has full-on body armor and shields and gas mask and riot gear and all that kind of stuff. It might be helpful at certain times, certain extremely very rare occasions, not like once a month as we are right now, or probably more than that, because I really haven't checked the numbers on mass shootings and things like that lately, because quite honestly, it's depressing at this point. It's incredibly depressing. And clearly the strategy of locking more people up, which we have been doing, is not working. It's not solving that problem. It's making a problem that did not exist when I was in middle school become a common problem, which is insane. So that is my rant on why lock 'em up and why prisons and why
So what? Give me
yes.
Rainforest. Give me your alternative. What do you tell me your vision of the world, a la Rainforest?
So in my rainforesty vision of the world, what would happen is that the goal, first off, it would be when problems come up, it would start from the very beginning of how we're even looking at the problems. And it's hard to see because it would be a very drastically different, be such a drastically different vision of the world, because like it would be on how we report problems, how we, and then and onto like what is even declared a problem because of how the laws would be written. Because like right now, we immediately, the first thing any reporter or anything wants to do whenever something happens is they want to say, this person did this, and like police are looking at suspects for the person who did whatever. But in my vision of the world, it would be there would be incentives for a person who makes a mistake to come forward and to basically say, I messed up. I did this thing. I need help. And I hurt person X, Y, and Z in this problem. And I want to help them. Now, and they like, so yeah. And so I'll put, let's start from the prison end, just like we did from the last time. So we don't need prisons. Instead, what we need is we need a place people can go to actually figure out where the problem is, get the help they need, and go and be rehabilitated, get treatment. So whereas prison right now is a place where there's no privacy, you're constantly worrying about, you have to constantly watch your back. Everyone is looking for what they can get out of you. They're constantly trying to get you to work for free for the state, or they're constantly trying to see if they can get your commissary or get you to do stuff for them, or they're trying to get you, there's all these things about who's doing what for who and what role, like, can you roll your window up because I'm too hot, or blah, 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 blah. Like everyone's trying to get you to into whatever role they are for whoever, and put everyone into everyone's place. Instead, there would be another place that would also be like exist outside of the general society that would be all about treatment. So whereas everyone's out looking out for themselves, it would be everyone looking out for each other, and that would be the goal of it. And I've been in a place like this. It was called treatment. In treatment, it's a place that exists outside of normal society, and you have no privacy because everyone is watching out for you. And like from the counselors to medical team to the people serving you food to everyone else who's around you. But the difference is like it's instead of being pitted up against each other, like your time is not regulated in that you spend 9 to 5 going to a job where you're paid nothing. Your 9 to 5, your hours are regulated in that you have to go to group counseling, and everyone is supposed to like please give each other your feedback on each other so that you can share your experiences, because the person who can help another one, like in addiction treatment, the people who can help others suffering from addiction the most are people who are going through addiction. People who aren't going through addiction, people going through addiction just kind of think they're liars or full of crap, because and I totally get that. It's you kind of, It's like, really? You've never had that? You can just take one drink. You don't have to get drunk or whatever. Like addicts don't get that. They don't understand that concept, and it's hard for them to understand. Just as anyone going through any real hard time, anyone who's never been through through some real hardship they're not going to relate to those two people. So they need a place where they can go and do that. And whereas right now,
Wayne, if I can jump in, I have a
yes,
question.
yes,
That sounds well and good for those who are repentant or even want to. How many people are you going to run into that aren't even going to be willing to admit they've even done anything?
and
How do you deal with it in that situation?
in a situation where people are not repentant and
Hey,
they don't.
You're giving me a very idealistic situation that depends a whole lot upon the acceptance of of their situation and a desire for help. And whereas I do believe that down inside, most people that have lived a criminal lifestyle or have been locked into some kind of lifestyle like that, I think that they do have a deep-seated desire to come out of it, to get help, if they can. And there's a lot of evidence of that. I mean, I've seen a lot of I've known of a lot of the cases where someone who was a criminal, lifelong criminal for decades, and got away with whatever they were doing. They finally got busted, and for them it was like a sigh of relief. Like, like they were glad that they were going to be able to just put this behind them. That whatever path forward, and oftentimes, all those circumstances I can think of involved prison, but they were like, they dealt with it. They were willing to. It was kind of like you. Whenever you had your accident, you had already started going through a treatment process long before you went to prison. You were ready to. You were excited about dealing with your problem and putting it behind you. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm saying that the majority of cases, or at least a lot of them, I don't know what the statistic would be, but I'm saying that a lot of people would be, if that was presented to them, look, this is a way we can put all that behind you. We can move on with a normal life. This is your pathway to being reintroduced and included in society again in a positive way. I think that would appeal to the majority of people that have been labeled criminals and sent to prison. But what about that rare few that don't even want to admit? They've got a problem. There's some people that we've both encountered that's very serious problems, and maybe it's a mental illness or something. But whatever it is, they're not even willing to admit that there's anything wrong going on, or that they've even done anything.
And I would say, so you're right. Yeah. So the majority of them, like you said, there will be the majority will recognize like the value. Like I will probably at some point recognize the value. There's another set that will have to they will have to be forced in. Like they will have to, and that would be the point of why you would still need a judge or something like that. But the difference between a judge in my universe and a judge in
in the circumstance I'm talking about, what is the difference between treatment and prison? Because you're still going to have to incarcerate this person to some extent. He's not going to willingly
the difference
participate.
The difference is that even though the person has been sentenced and they are forced to come, either way, the people are going to be going to have to either voluntarily or you're all right, Malone?
Yeah, I'm just joking.
But either way, the people will have to voluntarily or be forced to leave society. But even if they're forced to go, the difference will still remain the same. Everyone will still be, even if they aren't looking out for everyone else, even if they are kind of they don't want to admit what happened, and they're still like we said, There's a lot of people trying to say, this isn't my fault. I didn't do this thing. Um, and they're trying to minimize it. They're trying to dispute it. And there are some people, like in our current system, there are people who didn't do it. And there are procedures them, for them, pleading that case, but it's hard for them. But I think in this situation, if you didn't do it too, it would be easier to recognize in a treatment type situation than in a prison situation where no one cares either way. And for those people who genuinely who did it, who caused the problem, they don't care. They just want out. They don't want to be there. Then once again, the goal of this would not be about punishment, because right now it's just a judge giving each person an arbitrary number. That once again, no matter how long you go into a prison, when you come out, you're more likely to reoffend. That's the bottom line. So the number that the judge gives you is arbitrary, and it's for the intended goal is to make it feel good to the victims, to what is best for the victims. But the point of this place would be you're in as long as it takes until you're no longer a threat to society. And it wouldn't be a matter of you're stuck in there with officers who are basically stuck there fending for their lives. You would be in there with counselors and people who are trained to try and who want the best for you, who want you to get out and be a part of society again. And that would be the difference. But they're not going to let you out if you can't handle it. If you can't.
So there's no the sentence isn't necessarily something that's it's not, you're not being sentenced to a number, you're just being sentenced to
this
treatment facility until such time that I mean, it's one of those things that to me sounds like it
could go either way.
Either way. I mean,
right.
That's one of those things that's like subject. When you look at the original idea of what the penitentiary was, when the I think it was the Quakers or somebody came up with this idea of the penitentiary, and it was just, hey, you got this person and they need a timeout basically, and they put them in a cell with a Bible for a year. Every sentence was the same sentence. It was just 1 year. And the concept is that you're going to be surrounded with this extreme, you're going to be in there, and the only thing you're going to be able to focus on for this whole year is spirituality, positivity, that type of thing. You regular visits from religious, your whatever, I guess a Quaker preacher or whatever. And it worked. They had a lot of success with it. And I think that's it goes back to some what I said the first time that we ever talked about this subject. I said that one of the things I thought was one of the historical references to how crime was dealt with before prisons was in most Asian countries. They dealt with it through monasteries. They had Buddhist monasteries were the center part of central focus of most village life. And if they had someone that was giving them that big of a problem, they turned them over to the monks, and the monks would then keep them in the monastery. And it was the same kind of concept. They were going to be living a very spiritual, religious life for such a period of time until it made its way in, And I think that's kind of what you're talking about too. But much like the only reason I mentioned all that is much like the original concept of the penitentiary wasn't what it is now, and ended up becoming corrupted, so to speak, or co-opted by those that would just wanted to turn it into a vengeful way to spend their anger on people. Then likewise, what you're talking about can be turned into the exact same thing. I mean, what sort of safety measures would you have to try to keep this from being your new system from being turned into the old system all over again with just a different name?
It would have to be specific guidelines on who could get hired to lead it. It wouldn't just be good old boy wardens who. It would have to be people who specialize in sociology, psychology, counselors. It would have to be voted. No one person would.
Texas is they're overflowing with those kind of guys. They have a person with all those same degrees that's on their side telling them to do what they're doing right now. I mean, it's not hard to find a scholar that's going to agree with whatever you want them to agree with or to fit your particular philosophy.
Well, since we're out of time, let's table this and then we can go into. Let's talk about what.
I think you're just admitting defeat. I think that you've just hit a brick wall and can't think of anything else. And so you're trying to stall for time.
No, it's because we're at 26 minutes and it's a 25-minute show. And I'm happy we can do a whole another 25 minutes because we got to do another episode anyway and figure out, we can talk this out. We can break it down. So stay tuned for that, people. And we'll talk to you next time.
Break it down.
The Shakedown was produced at Longmont Public Media. And our theme song, Shakedown, was brought to you by Envato Elements. If you want any Shakedown merchandise or you want to support the show, you can go to waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com.